Hi and a very good day to Miss Dianna Suzieanna. My name is Mohamad Aqmarafiq and I'm going to present to you about the movie Sully and its finding in this movie. We are going to start with knowing oneself. A decision had to be taken and one was. Sully is that indispensable chief who changed into pressure to take a choice below proscribing situation with grave expertise of effects. But his composure at the time whilst human being life depended on him is worthy of a thunderous applause. Next is self-awareness. It is critical for leaders who work under high-pressure conditions to develop self-awareness in order to recognize bias, strengths, and flaws. In this movie, Chesley Sullenberger's self is portrayed in the movie as a highly skilled and experienced pilot. He is portrayed as a calm, collected individual who is able to make critical decisions under pressure. This finding can relate to personal experiences where individuals had to rely on their abilities to successfully navigate a difficult situation. I can relate to this situation when I'm trying to avoid an accident at the road. With all the experience that I got, I managed to keep myself calm and I managed to avoid it. Next is the example in this movie, which is Sully abandons the proposed destination of landing at one of the neighboring airports in favor of landing at the Hudson Rivers, which can save the most life. Next one is the scene where Captain Sullenberger argued strongly with the examining committee that their simulation attempt to recreate the scene that occurred during the flight. Sully had a problem with such live yet digital simulation. The flight simulation became insufficient because it conveyed the impression that the pilots would already figure out where it was possible to land and that they were instructed to do so. Next is personal growth. Striving for a personal progress and learning on a regular basis allow us to broaden our horizon, viewpoint, empathize with others, and to enhance self-communication abilities. For example, Sully were aware of the reason for the harm immediately away but required time to assess the extent of the damage before Sully could decide how to respond. According to Sully, the committee ignored the human side, which had taken him up to 1 minute to understand the gravity of the harm and his option. In this movie, the scene where committee ignores the human side during the plane crash is a great example of the importance of personal growth, specifically in the area of empathy. In the movie, the committee focuses on technical aspect of the plane crash and ignores the human side. This means that they do not take into consideration the feelings, experiences, and emotion of Chesley Sullenberger and his crew during the crash. This can relate to normal life and my life too, where individuals like me can become too focused on work, school, and other responsibilities to the point where they ignore the emotional side of their own experiences. This can lead to burnout, stress, and other negative emotion. It is important to maintain a balance between technical aspect of our life and the emotional aspect. By developing empathy and understanding, we can better relate to other people and ourselves, leading to a more fulfilling life. I can relate this because a few years ago, I was a part of a local committee that was trying to solve a complex issue. We spent a lot of time discussing technical aspects of the issue and analyzing data, but we failed to take into account the human aspect of the situation. This led to miscommunication and misunderstanding, which made the issue even more hard to solve. It taught me the importance of considering both technical and human aspect when addressing issues to ensure that the solution is effective and sustainable. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, so next findings on this Sully movie based on topic perception, self and communication, which is under chapter 2. Movie, Sully has to make a decision to land on Hudson River waters. So this decision that he made could have ended up terribly without his experience and abilities as a pilot to execute it well. Human judgment is not always perfect, and it can be subject to biases and inaccuracies, as well as statistical overload. So see that Sullenberger has allowed himself to be guided as the flight captain by his experience, instinct, and common sense to land it. So what influence in differences in perceptions? First is social and cultural influences. It is actually related to our upbringing, our cultural background, and social milieu, which all influence our perspectives, values, and perceptions in making decisions. So second is biological factors, which means our genetic makeup, sensory organs, and brain processes all play important roles in shaping our distinct perceptual abilities. Third one is our cognitive filters. Memory, attention, and selective perception are all cognitive processes that filter information, distinctively shaping our individuality perceptions. So all of these influence are actually related to a situation where Sally has to make decision upon landing on Hudson River waters. So next one, in this movie, we can see that in one scene, Captain Sullenberger, he actually argued strongly with the examining committee that their simulations attempted to recreate the scene that occurred during the flight actually ignore the human side. In this scene, we could see that this examining community, they have differences in perceptions between them and Captain Sully. So, as a mining committee, they actually do errors in their perceptions. They decided to reattempt the simulations, and then it have resulted in they couldn't virtually spin the plane towards one of the airports. And what influence in errors in terms of making decision is first confirmation bias, which means we have a tendency to seek and interpret information in ways that confirm our previous ideas, resulting in distorted perceptions and biased judgment. So the group said that pilots in a flight simulator, before this, they successfully landed at both LaGuardia and Teterboro airports after being provided flying information. So that's why they were so sure, and they actually argued with Captain Sully. And then second influence is selective attention, which means our limited attentional capacity causes us to select certain stimuli and ignore others, which can lead to inaccurate perceptions. They actually ignore all of the dangerous and possibilities that could happen because they just focus on certain stimuli, because they said, oh, before this everything went well, so it must going to be also well for this time around. That's why they had differences in perceptions during that time, and they made errors in their perceptions.
Next is Pursuit of Happiness. Will Smith starred as Chris Gardner, a homeless salesperson in Gabriel Munchino 2000 hit biography drama film The Pursuit of Happiness. Jaden Smith, Smith's son, made his cinematic debut as Gardner's son. Christopher Jr. is inspired by Gardner nearly 1 year battle with homelessness. Gardner saw a mural on the wall outside the daycare center where his son attended, which inspired the unique spelling of the film title. The film is set in 1981 in San Francisco. Chris Gardner is a struggling salesman eking out a living selling bone density scanner, while his wife worked double shift at a restaurant. He later found himself having to look after his son alone when his wife gave up and left him. As in this movie, we can see where Chris Gardner initiating, maintaining and terminating relationship. Initiating relationship in this movie when Chris want to apply for the apprentice program, he tried to meet Jay Twister to make sure he can get the spot in the program. He even waiting in front of the firms to make sure he can engage relationship with Jay, and give Jay a good first impression. Maintaining, when his wife want to leave, Chris made sure that his son will stay with him. After his wife left, he go to pick his son earlier in the next day at the daycare just to make sure his son stay with him. And for terminating relationship, Chris' wife leave the house and want to be separated with Chris even after several years of marriage. At first, she want to bring their son, but Chris insists that their son have to stay with him, and she left alone. What are the motivation for initiating and maintaining and terminating relationship in this scene? Initiating, where Chris initiate the relationship with Jay Twister, Chris is motivated to start a friendly relationship with Jay due to his financial problem, and he really wants to be in the apprentice program. And maintaining, where Chris maintaining his relationship with his son, Chris motivated to take care of his son due to his experience with his father, where his father left his mom. He didn't want his son to grow up without a father figure by his side. And lastly, terminating, where Chris' wife terminate their relationship. Chris' wife motivated in terminating relationship with Chris due to the financial problem. He can't stand anymore with the financial problem, and she also had a better offer in other city from his sister boyfriend, who just opened up a new restaurant.
Hello, my name is Shamim, and I will be talking about the self-disclosure elements that can be found in this movie. First, I will start with Mr. Jay Twistle, In the movie, he is the resource head under the Dean Witter company. From what I can evaluate, Chris doesn't always self-disclose about his troubles or inner feelings to Mr. Twistle as much as he does with his family. As to me, the relationship is more on the professional side. Although there are some instances where Chris does self-disclose, and this was during the interview before he got the internship. During the interview, Chris basically self-disclosed on why he appeared less formal than he usually is. He chose to tell the truth, and luckily for him, he was rewarded for his honesty by being accepted in the program afterwards. From this scene, Chris improved his interpersonal relationship with Mr. Twistle, as it is evident Mr. Twistle respects and supports Chris even more as the movie goes on. Choosing to self-disclose or being honest when you're late for an event or even when apologizing for something does build trust and respect of an individual in interpersonal relationships. This principle of self-disclosure does work for me, as I am usually honest and straightforward when in a relationship with someone. Although I admit that honesty doesn't always work, as I have met people who do not like it when I am telling the truth to them. For these next characters, I would like to explain it in brief. The first is Christopher Gardner, who I argue is Chris's main moral anchor and is the second most important character in the movie. Chris has an open and close relationship with his son, as evidenced by the many instances that they self-disclose of what they think and what they did with each other. This can be proven from the scene when Chris takes Christopher back from the daycare after he was hit by a car. Christopher points out on the fact that Chris is missing a shoe, and Chris surprisingly discloses what happened to explain why the shoe was missing. Not only does this show how close they are as a father and son, but it also shows how good Chris is at communicating and maintaining a trusting relationship with younger people. Chris does have his faults, but at least he is devoted to caring and supporting his son. I honestly do not have this kind of open and close relationship before, as my parents are too busy working. Thus, I don't have any self-disclosure or personal experiences that came as close as to what Chris had with Christopher. The last character is Chris's wife, Linda Gardner. As Chris's wife, he does self-disclose information on what he is going to do, what ideas he had, or what happened during his job. Although at Chris's lowest points, she became dismissive on his husband's problems and was absent during the latter half of the movie. Despite their rocky relationship, Linda still manages to self-disclose her whereabouts to Chris on going to New York for a better job opportunity. She probably told him about where she will be staying because she still has a responsibility as a mother towards her only son, Christopher. It isn't stated that they were divorced in the movie, so I wonder if Linda ever came back after Chris got that job. Even though both Linda and Chris's relationship was not mended until the end of the movie, they still managed to self-disclose and be honest with each other. This shows that self-disclosure doesn't always have the best results and can be used to hurt each other, as evidenced by Linda's dismissive behavior towards Chris's honesty to her. I did mention before that I have met people who dislike it when they are told the truth, and what happened between Linda and Chris is one of the many instances where your self-disclosure can backfire. That is all I have to say on the topic. We hope that this video provides what is needed in this task. If there are mistakes, we apologize and promise to improve more next time. Thanks for watching. See you later.